Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to the chat. I am the company's expert, the company's expert, except no substitutions. Welcome to everybody who is here. Now, today is an experiment. Normally, I'm talking all about how to get hired. And this is going to be something a little bit different. This is taking the focus off how to pass job interviews and talking more about business, okay? And I have no plan for today other than to talk about business. So we could talk about entrepreneurship, we could talk about doing a side hustle, we could talk about excelling in your job. The sky's the limit. And I see we have 5 people here today. My camera is really bright, so I'm just going to turn that down. Let's see here. Yes, I'm still using absolutely ancient technology. Well, Streamlabs OBS. I don't know if that's ancient or not. There we go. How many degrees in electrical engineering do you need to use streaming software? That's the big question. Anyway, yes, we have a question. There is a question from, I guess this was left before the stream started, by Ray Martinez, if I'm saying that right. Do you need to let a new job contact your old employer? No, you don't. Since it's the only question, I'll just take that right now. No, you don't need to allow that. It isn't. You don't have to. Now, what you could do is you could say, like, look, if you're currently working, you could say, no, I don't give you permission to contact my old employer because, well, quite frankly, I don't want them to know that I'm looking for another job. Right? I mean, you could do it that way. If you have already ended your employment with your previous employer, you could also say, well, we didn't leave on great terms, so I don't think any good would come of it. Something like that. So you don't have to. Now, if that looks suspicious and they won't hire you because of it, I don't know. I think that might be highly suspicious on their part, but that's just me. Yeah, so in this day and age, one of the great things about being around right now is that it's never been easier for people to do a side hustle or start their own business. I mean, the rise of things like YouTube, illustrate that. And when the internet came in, it changed everything. Okay, like every industry was pretty much affected by the internet. And as every wave of the internet has come in, that's also affected everything. And there's been many, many other technological advances. And whenever there's a technological advance that's widespread, that's going to, have serious ripples in the world of business. There's going to be a lot of new opportunities. And I've seen several of these waves come through. Like, for example, 3D printing and stuff is just a huge thing. It's changing the world of, machining and fabrication, manufacturing. Instead of having to make a part manually, like if you want to make a part made of metal or something, instead of being a machinist or someone that would fabricate that, use a bunch of tools to create it. Now anybody can just buy a 3D printer, set it up in your house, and start making these parts. You sort of print it, right? Like I have this famous thing here that everybody sees. You see my finger in the video? This all-in-one machine. And by the way, I do like Brother, not HP. It's incredible. You can manufacture parts. And so if there's some rare parts that people want, but it doesn't justify having a traditional manufacturing line, you can make that in your house, and people have been doing that. Okay, we've got questions coming in. Unfortunately, they're more about job interviews, but okay, fine. In the absence of anything else, I do want to talk about business today. I was going to sort of discourage questions about job interviews. No comment says, if a recruiter is ghosted for 3 weeks after one phone interview, should I bother? Well, look, this is apparently the language of recruiters in this day and age. What they'll do is the only thing that they will communicate a lot of times will be positives. They will not communicate negatives directly. They will not tell you, sorry, we're moving on, or we're proceeding with other candidates. They won't say these things. So their language of communicating that is to ghost you a lot of times, especially for low-level jobs. It's silly, and it's very disappointing, and it's aggravating as hell. But that's kind of the language they use. Now, there is a chance that your application or something might have fallen through the cracks, so you could follow up with them. There's no harm in following up. If you send an email, or what I would do is, if you're comfortable with it, I would send a voicemail or call them and just say, hello, I'm just, this is whatever your name is. I'm just following up to see if there was any progress with this. And if there was a next step, what the next step is, and if you get a machine, just leave that as a message. If you talk to them, just say that to them. And, that's fine. If it's a job you really care about, I would do that once. I would do it twice or 3 times if it was something really important. But beyond that, that's it, okay? Don't spend energy focusing on what opportunities you've already pursued. Refocus your energy on focusing on new job opportunities. Anyway, I want to get away from job opportunities today. We could talk about careers, but how to pass job interviews and stuff. Radu Dragon says, Dragon says, hello, Bill. Why is it difficult for some departments to collaborate and work together sometimes? Oh, excellent question. Excellent question. Thank you, Radu. You have the honor of having the first business-related question I was asked today. So congratulations. You are a fine, upstanding person, and I'm so glad you're here. Okay, well, there's multiple reasons, as I'm sure you've guessed, right? A lot of it is political, right? When you go to business school, you study a subject called organizational theory or organizational behavior. And I actually think it's quite an interesting topic. It describes how people behave in an organization. So either individually or as groups. Because as you probably noticed, there's a lot of things that happen that are very unintuitive. People don't always do what you would think would be the proper thing, right? One big reason, as you can imagine, a lot of things, they relate back to the principle that you are looking out for yourself first and not necessarily the organization, right? Or the department that you're in, okay? You care about your organization to a degree, and you want to prioritize their interests, okay? You care about your department or your work group, in whatever form that is, and you care about their interests, but you also care about yourself. Okay, so if you're faced with a decision where on one hand you could prioritize the needs of your work group, or alternatively you could prioritize the needs of yourself, like you could advance yourself, you could make yourself look good, you could curry favor with the boss, you could not risk getting fired or something like that. A lot of times, most individuals will choose to put their interests first. This is human behavior, okay? And so that's why we see a lot of intuitive things happening in organizations where people don't get along, people don't work together. Sometimes people actively work against each other. They will sabotage each other or refuse to help each other. And most of the time, if you really examine their thinking, it comes back down to that principle. They're prioritizing themselves over the work group or the organization. Okay? This is why people who actually know what they're doing when they're organizing, which is part of management, you will try to align everybody's personal interest with the interest of their work group or their organization. Okay, so what's best for them is what's best for the group or the organization. If you could align all those, then great things happen. People are motivated, right? Like if you could put some kind of reward at the end of it. I've been part of programs where you give out like a financial reward for somebody excelling in doing a project. And I've seen where, you could be paying somebody a salary of $100,000 a year, a lot of money. But they will work twice as hard if at the end of the week they do a good job and earn themselves a bonus of $100, right? Like it's that variable pay, that compensation at the end that really motivates people far more than sort of the money they always get, their sort of fixed pay. So there's all kinds of psychological things going on here, but those are two concepts that really that do explain a lot. Radu says, I've recently encountered a situation where project manager simply refused to get involved in an operations discussion because it was outside the scope of the projects they were working on. Yeah, that sounds like it's in a large organization where people have their turf and they don't have any interest about anything outside it. And you can't blame them necessarily because there's no reward for them to think outside of their particular area. Right? But that sounds like typical large organization thinking. That's not my job kind of attitude, right? And I'm not blaming anyone for them, not looking down on people for having that. It's just that organization, like if you look at the incentives, it's not set up to reward people for contributing in that way, right? It might actually actively work against them. They might be penalized in some way. It has nothing to do with money. Maybe everyone hates you if you express an opinion on a certain thing that's outside of your area, right? Why would you risk that if you don't have to? If there's no reward, why would you take that hit? Oh, even though it had everything to do with their project. So it's outside the scope of the projects they were working on, but it had everything to do with their project? Well, maybe they didn't draw that connection or something. I'm not sure. C-Rock, it's good to see you here. I remember you. C-Rock, do you have any recommendations for resources on how to build a great customer service or customer relations department? Do I have any recommendation for resources? Well, like any management textbook will tell you the fundamentals of that. The thing is, the principles are really not that hard, and they're universal. Now, how you apply it in your particular business or your organization is going to be a lot of times pretty particular to you, or at the very least, your specific industry. Okay? I think, in my experience, it's not that people need that specific information of how to adapt the principles. When I've seen either sales departments or customer service departments do a bad job and not score very high with customer service metrics, it's not because they don't know how to adapt the theory. They don't know the theory, or they lose sight of it. Okay? You're going to have a scorecard, okay, when you do customer service. You are talking about customer service, right? Yeah. Customer relations. Well, customer service and customer relations are two different things, but let's take customer service, okay? You're going to have a scorecard. You're going to have things like, obvious things like, sort of customer satisfaction. How happy, on average, are customers with the service you're providing them, okay? On the other hand, you're going to have like some financial metrics, okay? You're going to have some operational metrics. How much does it cost to deliver that satisfaction? You're going to have other things. You're going to deal with like turnover. And there's going to be all kinds of metrics you can use. Now, these are going to contradict each other, right? Like take the example of like a call center, something pretty basic. You keep customers on the phone for a long time. Generally speaking, the customer satisfaction will go up, okay? If you sort of end the call as soon as humanly possible with them, generally speaking, customer satisfaction will go down. And it will contradict your financial metrics and your operational metrics. Okay, it's more efficient. You can process more customers if you're only talking to each one for a minute and then you're off the phone, right? So these contradict. So in order to know what you should do there, okay, you need to sort of look at the business as a whole. And generally speaking, across the board, things like customer service and customer perceived quality is going to be the priority, right? But it's going to vary, because if you're in an industry where you have a lot of return customers, that's going to be even more important. If you're in an industry where you only really have one-time only customers, these people buy something and then you never hear from again. Like, for example, think of if you're selling houses, okay? What are the odds that if you're a builder who builds houses, what are the odds that you're going to sell a house twice to the same person? Very low, right? Most of the people that are end up being your customers, you never see them again after the transaction. So that can help explain sometimes why a lot of people complain that in the business of selling houses, businesses are not very transparent. There's a lot of lying involved. There's a lot of, kind of shenanigans. Customers generally complain about something. They're not 100% satisfied a lot of the time. And this is because the business knows, the builder knows that they're never going to see those people ever again. So if they lie to them just to like make it easier on them, they're not going to really feel too many consequences. They're not going to lose any business. If you're in another business where all your customers are return customers, they keep coming back again and again and again and again and again, then obviously something like customer service is going to be very, very important to you, right? And you don't care if you have to spend a little extra money to keep those customers satisfied, because if you keep them satisfied, they're going to keep coming back and spending a lot of money with you, right? So it's worth it. So you've got to look at the business as a whole to see what the priorities should be in customer service. Okay, and that helps frame what you should do with customer service and what you should prioritize. A lot of times in large organizations, or at least in mid-sized organizations, they lose sight of this. And one department doesn't really follow the same strategy that another department is doing, right? So that's where we see a lot of these inefficiencies. Like, I've seen major inefficiencies. Like, it's pathetic. But that's a great question. EGR NHL says, is supervisory experience important in a technical job field such as engineering to move up? Well, when you say move up, okay, most of the time, not always, but most of the time, it means you're going to be dealing with people. Okay? Now, dealing with people is very important. Now, I assume from your question that you are a technical person. I'm a technical person. I have a degree in engineering, and I've worked as a technician and all this kind of stuff in my early years before I became a supervisor and sort of moved up and all this kind of thing. And here's what I can say. If you're a technical person, probably the biggest thing, at least if you're anything like me, the biggest thing you're going to learn is that people skills are a lot more important than you think they are. Okay? And when you move up, usually one of the things that entails is dealing with people, either managing people, like supervising people, or more complex communication. Okay? What that means is that if you're a worker, your communication is pretty simple. You get instructions and you do it, and then you report back how it's going. Pretty simple. You're communicating sideways, with your peers, and it's not that challenging. But if you move up, say 1 or 2 levels, now you're a manager. Okay, now you're having to communicate downwards as well as upwards as well as sideways, and you can't just be super blunt and super gruff. Okay? I mean, I appreciate people that tell it like it is. They don't, when they need to communicate something, they can communicate something. But here's the problem. if every person that has to communicate with you ends up not enjoying it, okay, that will affect your career, okay? People will not want to promote you. People up here will not want to promote you to come up here with them because they don't want to work with you, right? You may be an amazing technical person. You may have great technical chops. You know your stuff. But, if you don't know how to be diplomatic, if you don't know how to deliver bad news in a way that doesn't piss everybody off, things like this, that's gonna hold you back, okay? So when you say, is supervisory experience important? Okay, here's what I would say. Just having done something doesn't necessarily mean you're good at it, okay? Sometimes it does, but a lot of times it doesn't. As we all know, you can be in a job for years and be bad at it. And the way people hire, for example, like we've talked about on this channel, is like a lot of recruiters, for example, they equate years of experience with how good you are. Now, as we all know, that's not necessarily correlated. There's a lot of people out there that are bad at their jobs and they stay in their jobs because they've been doing it for 20 years. So everybody assumes that, everyone who doesn't know them assumes that they're good at it, right? So experience is good in as much as it can convince someone you're okay at it who doesn't know you. But more than that, more than experience is knowing how to communicate. Okay, so you learn the theory of that, and then you apply it. If no one's ever taught you the theory, you're not just going to be instantly good at it. Okay, I mean, some people just are naturally gifted, but if you're a technical person, the odds are that you're not this amazing extrovert. Okay, some people are, but a lot of people aren't. Certainly, after 20 years of working in a technical environment, that's what I've seen. Now, the people who are technical people that are great at their job, they have their technical chops, that are also great at communicating with people, those people go far, okay? People want to work with you, and you know your stuff. I mean, how awesome is that, right? You know how to talk to customers, you know how to talk to managers, you know how to talk to like everybody, So, I mean, that's very, very powerful. The great thing is that communication skills are really not that hard to learn, especially if you've got a lot of technical chops. This is child's play compared to learning the technical stuff, okay? But it is important. The blind spot for a lot of technical people is how important communication skills and people skills are. A lot of times, speaking as a technical person myself, when you're young, you kind of trivialize that, But that's an excellent question. Thank you for asking that. Let's see here. Montana, thank you very much. You're awesome. And I love the fact that you're here. Dustin says, what factors do you consider to determine whether to add more owner-ran locations for a service business versus franchising? Okay, what factors do you consider to determine whether you add more owner-ran locations for a service business? Oh, I see. Okay, so do you already have a franchise? You're franchising out your business? Is that what you're saying? And you want to know, should I franchise out these different locations or should I run them myself? Look, full disclosure, okay, before I even start to answer this, I'm biased against franchising, okay? So that's going to consciously or unconsciously color my answer here. Like if it were me, I would just do it all myself. I don't think that you need franchising, okay? Franchising, in my opinion, okay, it succeeds because it allows someone who doesn't know business, like they've never been to business school, they don't have experience managing or running or owning businesses. It allows them to have their own business and have it be successful, okay? Because you're basically taking all the thinking work out of the equation, right? The franchise owner, they already tell you everything you need to do. Here's your brand, here's how you run the place, here's your suppliers, here's how your product. and so on, right? Like they take all the thinking work out of it. All you have to do is do it, right? You put sweat into it, not thought. Okay. Now, if you are capable, in my opinion, if you are capable, if you're the business owner and you've already come up with your formula, you've done the thinking work, you've come up with the product, you've come up with the brand, you've come up with, the operational handbook, you have, ties to all your supply chain and your vendors and all that stuff. If all of that's in place, like you've done the work, right? All you need is essentially someone to follow your instructions to run those locations. So my kind of position is, if you've already done that and you're already running some locations, why would you not run more? Now, if you have to get a proxy, if you have to get like some kind of manager to run them for you under your direction, then so be it. If it were me, I would do that rather than franchise out, like just start selling your franchise. Okay. The other part of that is that you're also going to start to lose control over your brand. And if your own businesses are tied to the franchise brand, if franchisees, if they screw up the operations of the locations that they own, like they start to produce really cheap, the product is just substandard, and they're trying to cut corners everywhere they can, and it leads to people, it leads to them damaging your brand equity, then you're going to feel the effects of that. It's going to be negative effects on you. So it's a form of like franchising is a form of marketing leverage. You're tying yourself to other people, right? Now, if those people do a great job, great. But if they do a bad job, then like the leverage goes both ways, right? You're increasing your risk too. So, I mean, it's obviously a very complicated topic. It's hard to sort of answer it in 2 minutes, but hopefully that helps. Okay. Radu again says, do you have any tips to help a product owner better visualize their end product or service? Most of the time, it doesn't seem like they know what they want. Okay, a product owner to better visualize their end product. Okay, so I'm inferring that you mean you're creating a product and you haven't finished creating it yet. Okay, you're sort of starting down the path of figuring out what your product would be. The only way to do that, really, okay, the number one thing to do is go out and talk to your customers, okay? Find your customers and start talking to them. If you haven't done that first, okay, you need to do that first. Don't create a product in a void. Okay, a lot of technical people do this when they start businesses. What they do is they have this vision, okay, of like, okay, I'm going to do this, and when I build it, they will come, right? Now, occasionally that works. Okay, if you happen to be brilliant, you're a genius, you're a Bill Gates, you're a Steve Jobs, okay, you're a Thomas Edison. Great, that can work. But most of the time it doesn't, okay? Most of the time, what happens is you have a vision. This is how things should be. That we should have this thing to solve problems. And once I show people this thing that I've created, they will instantly see the value. They will instantly pay for it and share my vision of how wonderful it is. Okay? Okay, that usually doesn't happen. What normally happens is that people end up spending all their money to create a product, to develop it, and then they put it out there, and then crickets. You see the tumbleweed going by, like nothing happens. People don't respond to it. Okay. Also, you then have the problem of like, okay, well, how do I get this in front of the right people, the people that would be interested? Then you have to start from scratch and do your marketing. Find out who would want this, where are they, how can I reach them, that kind of thing. So what really helps is to reverse that process. Start talking to those people first. Ask some questions. Say like, would you go for something like this? And if people go, I suppose, that's one thing. And if they go, oh, Oh, yes, I would. I would pay a lot of money for that, right? If everybody you talk to in that group has that reaction, that big reaction, then it's worth pursuing, okay? And you go about it in an ordered way. You say like, look, would you prepay for it? You can pre-order yours now, and then you get cash up front with which to develop the product, right? So there's like ways of doing it like that, okay? So it sort of self-funds it. Obviously, this is very general. I mean, I don't know what we're talking about, what industry or what, I don't know any details here, but that's a general pattern for what you can do, okay? And the end vision of the product is going to be whatever the customer wants it to be. Because there's no point in creating something that you think is awesome that nobody buys, right? You've just wasted a ton of money and you've wasted a lot of effort from a business perspective, okay? And it could be a big financial risk for you. Like, why do that? I mean, it's great to do these things as a research project, but not as a business. Okay, so if you want to do a research project, just let's admit that's what it is and proceed accordingly. If you want to do it as a commercial venture, like a business, then these are the things you kind of have to think about ahead of time. But great question. Thank you, Rowdy. You've asked a couple of great questions today. I didn't know what to talk about today. I had no plan. And thanks to you and some other people here, you guys are throwing some great questions out. Gadi Azur, if I'm saying that right. What's the best way to fast track a promotion? Visibility? Okay, this is my opinion on that, based on what I've seen. Okay, usually your promotion depends on the opinion of one individual. Like if you have a boss, right? Usually it's going to be the boss. It's up to them. Sometimes it's up to more than one person. It might be up to your boss plus a group of other people that decide who gets a raise, a promotion, or anything like that. Okay, a bonus, all that kind of stuff. What you have to do is you have to, if you're really gunning for this, you have to get close to those people. Okay, it's not enough just to be visible. You have to understand them, what they like, what they respond to, okay, what they prioritize, what their opinions are. And knowing all of that, if you get all that information, this is what they like, this is how they think, this is what they put value on, this is what they don't put value on, okay? And this is within the context of a very large organization, okay, where like business concerns are irrelevant. This is just you're trying to please your boss. So knowing what they care about, what they prioritize, what they respond to, what they don't like, okay, you be all the things that they like. Okay, that's the great way to make them want to promote you. Okay. There's also a lot of political stuff in there too. Like, for example, depending on the company culture, they may promote the most useless person. Because if they take their best worker off the floor to make them a supervisor, they lose their most productive worker. In some large organization, this is how they think. It explains a lot, doesn't it? So they take the least competent worker and make them a supervisor. So if you had to lose a person off the floor, you lose your least valuable employee, right? This is how some organizations think. Right? So as I said, let's say hypothetically, if you were in that environment and you wanted to get a promotion, well, I hate to say it, but if that's how they determine who gets a promotion, you might want to slow down. Isn't that stupid? It's sad, but true. So you get close to the people that make those decisions, you find out how they think, and you be what they value most. I'm going to turn my brightness down yet again, because a white shirt on a white background might be a little too much for some people to handle, if you know what I'm saying. Okay. Which stocks is best for investment? Go learn finance, okay? That's all I'm going to say. Okay. Ronald M. How does one learn how to supervise an employee with limited experience? With limited experience. Well, listen, there's really not that much to it. First of all, I don't care what environment you're in. I don't care if you're in a very tough culture. Like, let's say you're in the steelworks, or in the railroads or in the trucking industry or the construction industry. People tend to be gruff. People tend to be direct. People tend to be rude. People tend to be crude, right? I don't care what environment you're in. Be nice, okay? Be nice to people. Be pleasant to deal with. Now, yes, sometimes people will take advantage of that, okay? There's some industries at a very low level where if somebody comes to you with a problem, your response is to lose your temper, snap like a twig, yell at them, berate them, shout and scream. And what effect does this have? This has the effect of that person will never come to you again with a problem. Now, maybe that's what you want. So it seems like that's the best way to handle it, right? That's false, because although you get some short-term gain, a lot of times you get a long-term loss, okay? Do you want a person like that talking to customers? Do you want a person like that supervising large amounts of people? Do you want a person like that talking to potential investors, potential partners, potential vendors, potential suppliers? No, you don't. You don't. All things being equal, that makes you undesirable. Okay? Despite the illusion sometimes that it's the thing to do. Okay? And I'm not talking from the perspective of someone that's like sat behind a desk all my career. I'm talking about like I've been out. I've been out in some pretty rough environments. Okay? And I've seen this firsthand, and I've experimented both ways. And I've been the person on the receiving end of a lot of this too, as well as the giving end. So, yeah, be nice to people. That's the number one rule, okay? Be someone that people want to deal with, okay? And learn, I know this is going to sound kind of silly, but learn to listen to people, okay? If they come to you with a problem, a lot of people listen where they're just waiting for the other person to stop talking so they can say their thing. Okay? Don't do that. Actually, listen to what they're saying. Consider what they're telling you. Okay? Start maybe changing your mind on your opinions based on what they say. Okay? And then dealing with it. Okay? A lot of times people don't listen. Sometimes a boss will say, okay, I need you to go do this, this, this. Worker will come back saying, I can't do that because of this problem and this problem and this problem. Now, the boss isn't really listening to that. They're just saying okay, what they're thinking is, here's a person that hasn't done what I've said. What is their problem? I don't like this person. They need to do what I say. That's what's going through their head. They're not actually listening and considering what this person is saying. Okay? Now, yes, sometimes people will come up with BS reasons to not do what you say. It depends what environment you're in, okay? But the thing is, to be an actual people manager, you have to listen to people, okay? And you have to be nice to them. This can be quite challenging. Those two things alone can be very challenging. If you're under a deadline and the pressure's on, this can be extremely hard to do, okay? But those two things alone are like 75% of all you have to do to be really good at it. Okay? So that should hopefully start you off. Learn about people management. Look at, there's some great channels out there. There's some great books out there. I mean, there's a lot of crap books out there, but there is some good stuff out there, and pick up tips here and there. Okay? The more you think about it, most people don't even think about improving themselves in that area. So you have an edge over them, over all of them. Okay? So hopefully that makes sense. That'll get you started. Like a nice person that knows their technical stuff, that's a great boss. Okay, where did I leave off here? Please contact. Okay, I think I'm here. Sir, please explain further about tactical planning to strategic planning. Okay, strategic planning, anything strategic is very high level, okay? You're looking at the entire game, right? So if in business, you're looking at the entire industry, where you fit in it, what's happening with the industry, what's happening with the economy, what's happening, that kind of stuff. What are you trying to do? What business are you trying to move into? That kind of thing. Tactical is where you get right down to the worker level, what they're actually doing on a day-to-day basis. So like the processes, the procedures, the actual details of the work. What's going on at the ground level? That's tactical, okay? Tactical is low-level planning. Strategic is high-level planning. Sometimes you get people that use the word operational planning, that's kind of mid-level between them. Okay. So for example, like if you're talking about a country, strategic planning is maybe you're wanting to increase exports or something like that, and you're signing contracts with other countries. That's at the strategic level, okay? Tactical level would be like, what does the border guard do to inspect a truck that comes through the border, right? Like, do they check here? Do they check there? Do they ask the driver for this form, right? That's the tactical level. And operational planning might be in the middle. That might be, okay, allocating more resources to border guards or allocating new technology to help, maybe like guns and stuff to scan tags or RFIDs to give, border services more resources, things like that. That's sort of the mid-level. High-level planning, low-level planning, mid-level planning. Strategic, tactical, and then sometimes operational in the middle. And it also applies to timescales. Strategic planning, you're thinking 5, 10 years ahead. For business, for countries, you're thinking 50 years ahead, right? Tactical planning, you're thinking of this week, this day, right? Operational planning, the operational plan might be a year. For the next year, this is what we're doing. EGR says, follow-up question. I have a job offer and 10 plus years in engineering. Oh, right on. That's quite an accomplishment. Should I be concerned if the job does not offer supervisory experience? I'm looking long-term in my career. Well, I mean, that's one of the things you would look at, yes. But not everything. I mean, if they're paying you a hell of a lot of money, it might be worth it, right? Yes, it would be a boon like 10 years out to maybe start doing people management. Yes, that could be something. But you never know. You can get into a job, and then if they see that you have great people skills, you know how to communicate well, you're articulate, you are very diplomatic, you don't say inappropriate things to everybody, you don't shoot ideas down in kind of a rude way, things like this, you're great to deal with. Then once you're in there, they may want to move you into a supervisory role if one opens up, right? So you could try that. I mean, there's many variables, and without knowing them, it's hard to say what's good or what's bad. But that could be, if they don't give you a supervisory role off the bat and you want that, it may be possible to move into one after, say, 6 months or a year, depending on the details, right? But it's not an unreasonable thing to want. Supervisor experience 10 years in, that's when that's starting to be reasonable, right? No, I don't think anyone would argue that you're not qualified to be a supervisor after 10 years experience in the field. Okay. Raghu says, thank you for your responses, Bill. They are most informative and have helped me view things. Okay, great. It's great that they're somewhat useful. Sir, please explain further about tactical planning Please explain further. Well, look, these are just words that they apply to everything, okay? Strategic means high level. Tactical means very low level, okay? So I think I explained that properly before. I mean, it's hard to go into more detail without giving a specific example. Okay, that's the definition of these words. Tactical planning is the day-to-day things that people at the bottom, the workers, have to do. Strategic planning is the planning you do, the predictions you make based on where you want to be in 5 years or 10 years, and you're looking at high-level things, okay? Things involving a lot of money, a lot of people. Strategic planning is usually done by the executive management team. So if you're in a large organization, that'll be the CEO, that'll be the C-level executives, okay, possibly presidents, vice presidents. Okay. How can I get seed funding for my MVP project? Well, here we get into entrepreneurship. You're going to hate me for this. I actually dissuade people from getting seed funding. Because what happens is like 99% of people that get seed funding, it fails, right? I advocate for a completely different approach where instead of thinking up ways to spend money and then needing a lot of money, instead I advocate for thinking of ways of accomplishing your goal without spending money, how can we eliminate the need for something rather than thinking, how can I raise money to pay for this thing? Okay. A lot of times with a little bit of thought, you can figure out ways to accomplish your goal without the need for something. A lot of times people don't even think like that at all. And that explains why they need, $250,000 to get a startup idea off the ground, which is silly. Because what they should be doing is, like I said earlier in the stream, is they should be focusing on the marketing first. Make sure that there's a market. Make sure that there's people that you can convince them to pay you for this thing at the end. Make sure of that first before you spend a lot of money creating something that nobody wants. That's what certainly well over 95% of people end up in. The ones that actually get to the point where they come out with their prototype, okay, or even a product, the ones that even get that far, they can't sell it, Or they have lofty ideas of, I'm going to be acquired by a large organization. Well, most of the time that doesn't happen. Okay, so instead of thinking about seed capital, okay, think about your marketing first. Now, the other problem, okay, I will answer your question, but I want to say this first. The other problem is that you get something called the valley of death, right? People will fund you at the seed stage, okay? And they'll fund you at the moment when you're revenue positive, when you're making money on it. But there's generally, like in a lot of regions of the world, there's not that much funding in between. Okay? So they'll give you some seed funding, but they're not going to give you anything else until you start making money. That's also what kills a lot of these startup projects. Okay? Okay, now to answer your question, okay? It's been a few years since I was sort of in the thick of this, but there are depending on where you live in the world, what country you're in and what region you're in, there tend to be a lot of government programs, okay, that are a source of these things. There's at every level of government, municipal, regional, national, they'll have programs where you can apply and you can receive funding. Usually those are very poorly run. They fund all the wrong projects that end up dying. They have very, very low success rates. And they do it because it gives the illusion of stimulating the economy, which it really doesn't. It's like you might as well pay people to dig holes and then fill them back in. Like it doesn't actually create wealth. Okay? So thinking of money first is actually, I would dissuade you from that. But, okay, if you're looking for seed funding, okay, you basically only have, like, apart from government funding programs where you apply, there's only like two sources, and that's like yourself, friends and family, or some kind of angel investor. Usually, like angel investor just means like a wealthy individual a lot of times. Okay. If you're in Silicon Valley or if you're in certain places in the EU or other kind of hotspots in the world, you can get institutional investors like sort of, they won't be venture capitalists, but they'll still be angel investors. They will help fund stuff. Okay. But the only way of really contacting them is for you to be extroverted. You go out and you network in person, you meet these people, they believe in you as a person. Okay. It's not that they think your business idea is amazing. I mean, that is a part of it. But the number one factor is that they believe in you as a person. They think you're highly capable, individual with lots of potential. If they're a rich doctor or a rich dentist or a rich lawyer or whatever, they want to get into the world of investing. After meeting you repeatedly and getting to know you and all this kind of stuff, then they can maybe, fund your project. Other than that, I would look for government funding. But just beware. You are about to embark on a business venture, and business is about selling something to customers, delivering value to customers. If you don't think about that right now, and you don't start working towards that, you are just delaying it. The longer you delay, the higher your risk goes. The more money you sink into something, the more of your time and effort you sink into something without having thought about, like, who are my customers? Have I met them? Have I talked to them? Have they given me feedback? Am I running by what I'm doing with them to make sure that this is still what they want? If you haven't done any of that, you're just pushing it out and you're increasing the risk, the more time and resources you sink into it. Okay. It can be done. And it's great. It's great that, you're doing an entrepreneurial type thing, but you see a lot of this hype about seed capital and this is how you do it. If you look, okay, you don't have to take my word on this, but if you look and do your research, it's being propagated by companies in the financial services industry. They're wanting to sell you a loan, right? A lot of times. They're the ones that fund a lot of these programs. And they're just trying to sell loans. And it's a little bit unethical in my opinion, because the failure rate of startups and things are so high that you're stuck with a lot of debt. And then you can't do another idea because you're still paying off the debt from the first one. So just be very careful with that, okay? Where do they leave off here? Tactical planning, MVP. I don't want to answer questions about job interviews. This is about business. I'm trying to do something other than that for a change. My next live stream will be on Sunday, where I'll be talking about job interviews and stuff. How do I approach my supervisor for more challenging assignments? I have not been successful in previous requests. Thanks. How do you approach them? You go up to them and say, you initiate a conversation with them. Hopefully you can do that. You say, hey, how's it going today? That kind of thing, right? And then hopefully they're in a good mood. Don't do this when they're having a bad day or something, right? If they come to you to talk about work, how's it going? How's that assignment going? Have you had any issues? Do you have any preliminary results? That kind of thing. If you're having that kind of conversation, what would be great is if you could say something like, oh, it's on track. Here's some early results. Here's an update. Everything's going fine. I'll actually hopefully be finished ahead of schedule. I'm shooting to finish ahead of schedule. So hopefully by Friday, we'll get the final thing. But listen, I was meaning to talk to you about this. I like doing this kind of work and this is cool. I was hoping, if possible, to get more work like this or like that, So I know you might not be able to do that right now, but if you could keep that in mind, if anything like that comes down the pike, give it to me, or something like that. I don't know what the context is, but it shouldn't be too hard to approach them. If they're in a good mood, if they're already talking about work, and if you have nothing but good news to report, that might be a great opportunity to also, after you've given them their update, to sort of plant the seed of, I'd like to do this. If ever that happens, please consider me. Hopefully that makes sense. GM, General Motors. I remember years ago I had to answer the phone, General Motors. And my big joke at the time was specific motors. I know, hilarious. I thought that was funny. How pathetic can you be? I'm fresher web developer. How can I get my dream job? Oh, it's hard to ask a more general question than that. Well, let me ask you something. Is your dream job working for somebody else? Where you have to have certain work hours, and if you're late, there's a problem. And if you are successful and you make a lot of money, they keep most of the money. Is that your dream job? The thing about having your own company or being an entrepreneur is that you have freedom from a lot of the corporate crap that most people don't like. Having somebody standing over your shoulder, making sure you do work, having a completely unreasonable boss, that doesn't know what you do, doesn't care about you, doesn't know what they're doing themselves, but yet they tell you what to do, and you have to listen and you have to take it. Right? So when you're young, it's understandable. I'm certainly not going to judge you if you're thinking of like a job, like a dream job. But after you've been maybe working for 10 years, maybe your dream occupation is not having a job where you work for somebody else. You're successful on your own, or you even hire other people. That's it. So to answer your question, okay, how can I get my dream job? Well, I mean, like without knowing any details whatsoever about what you're trying to do, other than being a web developer, look, I've never worked as a web developer. I've never been specifically in that industry. I understand it's something that is kind of hot right now. Like, there's a demand for it, but there's also a lot of people that do it. It's a very competitive space. Let's see. I mean, if I was a web developer, in addition to the things I've said this stream, like have great people skills, be great at dealing with customers, a general theme for success is if you have technical skills, but you're also great with people, generally, that will get you far, okay? So a lot of web developers are technical people. They're introverted technical people. They're not great at talking with people. They don't do sales, right? A lot of them. Okay, some of them do. The ones that do, they have a definite edge. Okay, especially if you're like an independent web developer. Okay, you're working, like you're doing stuff with Fiverr or that kind of stuff. You're doing contract work for companies and things. I've hired web developers. I've hired software engineers. The problem I always had was that the problem is like you're developing a business application or a business website. And it's always something that it goes so slow. And it's something that me and a lot of other managers would shy away from because, it just seems to be interminable. These people, what you would love to say is like, okay, go away and design me the website. It should have this. Here's like a branding kit, like a marketing kit. Here's all our, the vector art for our logo and all our publicity shots and like all the product shots, all that kind of stuff. Here's the package, go, But it's never like that. It's like they keep coming back, like after a day or two. Oh, and then you have to have an hour meeting, and then you have an hour meeting, and then they come back again a couple days later. You have to have another hour meeting, and then it just keeps going on. It goes so slowly. What I would have wanted as a manager is someone that just could just get it done. Like enough about business and business needs to make all these little decisions yourself and not have to come back to the client and and ask about every little tiny thing. Do you want this here? Do you want it there? Do you want a Q&A section? Do you not want this? it was just this never-ending process. And then when it was done, it was still very buggy, and it didn't really work properly, and you got to spend even more money to try and get it working. It was just a nightmare. So if you can do anything to fix some of those problems, okay, and if you work with businesses, maybe small businesses, mid-sized businesses in your area, or globally, whatever, people would appreciate that, I think. Knowing how to create websites is great, but if you're creating websites for like a business and you don't know anything about business or what business's needs are, that can hold you back. It's great knowing how to do things, but if you don't know what you should do in the first place, that can be a problem. And businesses, they're not experts on websites, so they don't know if you should have a Q&A section or you should have, frames here or there, or, you know what I mean? Like this type of, people like to talk up, oh, we're going to have this like 3D kind of virtual reality thing where you can walk in and you could like take a look around and it simulates it. And that sounds great. But then when you actually try and implement it, it always takes like 1,000 times longer than the predictions. It's always 1,000 times more expensive than the predictions. It takes up all the managers' time away from their business. Those are the practical problems, at least in my experience, with, web development when you're doing it as a service. So anything you can do to like solve some of those, I think a lot of people would really appreciate it. That's always been the issue with IT. You have business here that doesn't understand IT, and then you've got IT here that doesn't understand business. And because nobody understands both, they're dysfunctional. Okay, but that's a good question. These are some high level questions you guys are firing out. This is great, actually. I had no idea what people are interested in, what people want to know. So I wanted to do this live stream just as a general thing. Let's see what questions you guys have, and then I'll have an idea in the future of like what direction to go in with maybe this stuff. Just as a reminder, if you do want to learn business, okay. I recommend this. You see my little icon here? Okay, here's my course, the $100 MBA. You learn everything you would in a real MBA, the proper university, brick and mortar MBA that takes you 2 years and costs 5 figures. You learn everything. It's the same source material. The only difference is that this has no tests, no evaluations, no assignments, and you can do it entirely on your own schedule, at your own pace, and to the depth that you want. So if that sounds interesting to you at all, check out the link in the description and check out that course. Okay, where are we here? Message retracted. Here we go. Okay, we got the web thing. Thank you, sir, for your informative content, especially your vlogs about interview, because I am planning to apply a new company. I guess apply to a new company. God bless, sir. Looking forward to your next vlog. Thank you. Thank you very much. I wish you the best of luck. I hope it goes well. Ragu says, listening to your customers, great strategy. Yeah, that's like, look. Here's something that a lot of people don't know when they should. You can do a lot of different things in life. Okay, you can pursue hobbies. You could learn and do research about things that you're into, okay? And that's fine. Those are hobbies, those are research projects, those are, activities with your friends. But the moment that money enters into it, you're trying to make money or you get paid something, now it's a business. And if you don't understand, like, okay, how can I do more of this? You learn business. It's just as simple as that. It's deceptive. A lot of people think they can go into business not knowing business. You can, but you have to be very, very lucky that just the circumstances happen to be perfect and you were just right at the right place at the right time. Most of the time, you have to learn what you're doing. It's like saying, I want to go into dentistry, but I'm not going to learn how to be a dentist. Now, what are your odds of success? I wouldn't say there's zero, because you could have a very intelligent, very capable, very talented person, and people come to them with like minor issues with their teeth, and this person helps them, and they get paid for it. It's still possible, right? Maybe you work in a part of the world where there is no real standard for qualifying dentists or something. You go there, and then you're no less qualified than anyone else, right? I mean, it is possible to do, but generally speaking, like if you want to succeed as a dentist, it would be good to know dentistry, right? A lot of places in the world, it's illegal to do dentistry without having qualified as a dentist, right? The other example I use is acting. I want to be a famous movie star on the screen, but I'm not going to go to drama school. Now, is it possible to succeed with that plan? Yes, some people have. You're just naturally so brilliant of an actor. And, you're lucky in that you're given a chance and someone sees your brilliance, and lo and behold, the movie is a hit, right? All the other, elements that you had nothing to do with, they all worked out and the movie was a hit. So yes, it's possible to succeed, but all things being equal, more people succeed when they go to drama school to learn how to act. If you add that to your natural talent, that's what makes you a movie star, generally, okay? So it's like business. Can you succeed and make money on your own running a business without having gone to business school or learning anything about business? Yes, you can, but it's damn hard and it's unusual. There's a lot of people that try and they're somewhat successful, but they're successful despite their lack of knowledge, not because of it. If you learn your trade, you will go further. And look, I'm not saying this to try and sell a course. Forget about my course. I'm talking in general. Okay? You don't have to get my course. Get if an ambition of yours is to go into business for yourself. Maybe there was someone here who was talking about having 10 years in engineering. Let's say you've got 10 years in your profession, your vocation, whatever you do. Let's say you have 15 or 20, and you know enough about the business. You have the technical side down, but you also know the customers and you see what your business is doing in selling the services. And it's something that you could do on your own. You don't have to work for a company. You could set yourself up as an independent. Sometimes that's the best thing that you ever did. Because if you do good work and people like you and your industry is kind of secure, you could be keeping all the money you make instead of giving 60 or 70% of it back to somebody else. And the harder you work, the more money you make. Unlike a lot of jobs where a lot of your compensation is fixed. You're either making an hourly wage or you're making a salary. So if the company is like doing great, they don't pay you anymore. They still pay you your hourly wage and they pay you your salary. All that extra money that they make, they keep. That goes to the owners and investors. Okay. Now, yes, it can be a little more risky, but it can be a hell of a lot more rewarding. So something to consider. Okay, I'm not trying to force anyone into anything, but I'm just saying this is the reality. And a lot of people realize this a little later in their careers, and some people have the opportunity to do it. Other people decide to do startups and things when they're young. And if you know your stuff and you've got something to offer, it can be very, very profitable. But like anything else, you got to learn what you're doing. Okay, you can't just jump into something not knowing anything about it. You have to learn. Yeah, and listening to customers. I mean, business is, like I said, it's selling something to a customer, it's delivering value to a customer, and in exchange, they pay you money, right? That's what business is. There's a lot of people that they get themselves fancy offices, they have business cards, websites, They wear fancy clothes. They go to a lot of meetings and conferences. And they think they're in business. They're not, because they're not profitable. They're not making money. They're imitating being in business. They think they're in business. They're not. All they're doing is they're spending other people's money to do all that. I've seen a lot of people do that. I've seen government do that. I've seen sort of startup founders like getting all this money thrown at them and then just doing that, thinking they're in business. They're not in business. Unless you've sold something, unless you're profitable, you're not in business. You're pretending to be in business. And they're doing all the things I mentioned, business cards, websites, offices, clothes, conferences. That's not even the core of what business is. Business is knowing your customer, knowing what they want, being in a position to meet those wants and needs, and doing it better than other people, your competitors. If you're doing that, you're in business. You could be wearing sweatpants. You could have like the worst office you've ever seen. It's like a closet in some old building that should be condemned, But you're profitable. Some of the more successful business people I've seen, they don't spend money on offices and business cards and like all the window dressing. They don't spend money on that stuff. They take that money and they put it into their pocket, because you don't need it, right? And sometimes it can work against you. If a customer comes to take a tour of your facility and they see like the most expensive, lights and walls, and you've got like granite countertops and wall-to-wall carpeting and oak paneled conference rooms and things, they think like, wow, these people are really overcharging me. They seem to have money to throw around. Maybe I shouldn't be paying as much as I am for what they're doing for me. I feel kind of like I've been taken. And it's based on insecurity. They're trying to convince people they're successful when they're not. Okay, where were we here? Okay, I'm studying for a marketing master's degree. Okay, that's a good thing. I'm struggling to get my foot through the door despite having interviews, doing free work, etc. Any tips? I only recently moved from a career in education. I have a video coming out tomorrow that kind of may help a little bit. It's called How to Get the Best Jobs. I've done a lot of videos on this channel, and I have a course that walks you through the entire thing of how to get all the jobs that are actually out there that are not advertised. Right? 80% of jobs exist that are not advertised. The ones that you're seeing in job listings and things like that, that's 20% of all the jobs that are actually out there. Okay, the other ones are not posted publicly. I would go after those. That's my advice to anyone, really. No, I don't care if you're just starting out. I don't care if you're, an industry veteran. You've got 25, 30 years in your industry. That's the way to get a job. And the beautiful thing is you don't have to deal with a single recruiter that's going to treat you like crap. You bypass the recruiters. I'm very much swimming uphill on this because most people, when they hear this, if they've never heard of it before, they just assume it's BS. But it's not. And a lot of people will discover this on their own at some point in their career. Hopefully sooner rather than later. The sooner you realize this and you discover it, the better you'll do. Because any job that's like really desirable or really important, they don't want to fill that job with a stranger. I'm speaking as a CEO here. The jobs that are really important, like, okay, let me paint you a picture, okay? And I am answering your question just in a roundabout way, so just bear with me. Let me paint you a picture, okay? You are going away on a trip for a year, okay? And you need somebody to like you have a, say, a house, okay, and a car and some nice stuff, okay? You can't just leave it unattended for a year, okay? You need someone to manage it for you. Okay, so you have to find someone that you're going to entrust with this thing that's very important to you, okay? You've worked your whole life to be able to pay for all this nice stuff. You got a nice house, you got a nice car, nice belongings, whatever, okay? You're going to leave. You need someone else to manage it for you. How would you find a person? What person would you put to manage your stuff? Okay, like all your stuff. And included in this is all your personal information, your computers with all their files in it. Okay? All your confidential information, right? Who would you get to manage that? Would you post a job and start interviewing total strangers that you're going to give the keys of like everything you've worked for your whole life over to them? Would you feel comfortable doing that? The answer for most people is no. Okay? Above all, I need somebody I can trust. Someone who has proved themselves, somebody I know that I feel comfortable with, right? So imagine you're an owner of a business, okay? You've sunk your life savings into buying a business or buying multiple businesses. Okay? And you own, I don't know, a gas station and a fast food franchise and, whatever, right? Like you have worked your entire life for these things. It's very important that they are run properly when you're not looking, right? Okay? Who would you hire to run one of these things? Would you hire somebody off the street that you don't know? The answer that most people say is no. If this is my stuff, that's very important to me. All my personal confidential information, they will have access to. Okay? My entire identity, they will have access to. Okay? All my personal records, blah, blah, they'll have access to. I need somebody I can trust. I'm not hiring a stranger to do this. I don't care how brilliant they look. I don't care how they amaze me in an interview. I need more than that. I need someone that I know I can rely on, that is not in it for the money, that's not in it for themselves. They care about me and they care about my stuff. So that's the position that a lot of executives or business owners are put in. Okay, if you're hiring for a position that's very important, you need to get the right person, because if you get the wrong person, they could screw this whole thing up, right? Like to run a marketing department, okay? Marketing, that's a big responsibility. You could, if you piss off all your customers, right, by doing something stupid, that could take years to recover from that, even if you could recover at all, right? You need to have the right person there, right? So how do they hire for those jobs? They don't go, generally they don't go and post the job publicly and start doing interviews with strangers. I mean, okay, you might be confident in your ability to, be a judge of character or something, but you're not going to, think of the stakes here, right? So what you do is you first think, okay, trust is the most important thing. I don't care how smart this person is, beyond a certain point. The most important thing is that I trust them. How do you gain trust? Well, you gain trust by working with people and knowing of them. If you worked with somebody for 20 years and you've been through good times together, bad times together, you've seen how they behave, right? You have a long history. That's how you trust somebody. That's why people would put their family member in charge of all their stuff, because at least you trust them. You might not get along with them all the time. They might not be the smartest person ever. They might not have a background in managing houses and property and confidential information, but at least you trust them more than anybody, right? So the really important jobs, generally, they don't hire by posting the job. Okay, that's one of the reasons for it. Okay? Now, one way to gain that trust is to work in a place for a long time you have like 10 years with the company. If you've survived in the company for 10 years, you're probably good. You're not a criminal. You're not crazy. You're not like a raging sociopath. You're not, you don't steal. You don't have any major personal problems where people can't work with you, and you're trustworthy, right? Like they can put you in charge of something. You're responsible and you won't screw it up, right? So that's one way you earn your trust, like staying in the company for 10 years, maybe working for the same people for 10 years. You've earned their trust, right? That's one way. Okay. For other jobs that aren't like absolutely critical, you can demonstrate how professional you are and how passionate you are by contacting these people proactively, right? And saying, look, I just want to talk to you. I just love to ask you some questions, or, I'd love to work for your company, like this kind of thing. You're demonstrating, your initiative, you're demonstrating your professionalism, you're demonstrating your understanding of protocol and tact, right? And they respond to that, okay? So the hidden job market is the place to go for a variety of reasons, okay? Like a lot of times, if you just need a warm body, you just need like, a worker. Like I need someone that can stack boxes. I need someone that can build websites. I need someone that can, do this type of design. There's a lot of people that can do that. I just need someone that can do it. That's when you post the job publicly, right? Okay. So your question originally is you're studying for a marketing master's degree. Okay. You're struggling, trying to get your foot in the door. Okay. Any tips? I would check out the hidden job market. I would start proactively contacting hiring managers. I have a video on my YouTube channel, free video. You don't have to buy anything off me. A free video called I was trying to remember this the last time. It's called let's see if I can find it. But I walk you through some of the process of doing this. And it's very quick. Just bear with me a second here, and I will show it to you guys. By the way, thank you to all my members. I have a members only video coming out this week that's talking about business. I think it's called like the most important business strategy, or the most successful business strategy. Now let's see if I can show it right here. Yeah, here we go. Okay, so this one right here, that one right there. Okay, so how successful people get jobs. Check that out. Okay, so go to YouTube, type in how successful people get jobs, the company's expert, and then hopefully that video should come up. Or you can just go to my channel and see it directly. Just look at videos. Came out like I think 2 or 3 months ago. So that should get you started. Okay, that can bypass all the crap that you're dealing with, because the problem is you're going in the door as part of a large crowd. There's a lot of people with like marketing qualifications. You're wanting to elevate yourself above the crowd. It's hard to elevate yourself above the crowd when you're doing the same thing that everybody else is doing. You've got to distinguish yourself by looking for a job in a different way, a way that is very lucrative, but also where you don't have very much competition. And this is the thing to do, in my opinion, based on my experience. That's how I've gotten everything I've ever gotten in the last 10 years or so. All contract work, consulting work, everything. I got teaching jobs. I just went to the dean of, colleges and things and universities and said, hi, I'm interested in doing some teaching. I was like, bam, there you go. Never been a teacher before. Right? It's a way to short circuit that system. You get away from all the ridiculous stuff that recruiters obsess themselves about, all these silly requirements that aren't based on anything real. Okay, I've got to get away from the job thing for a second here. Thank you. Yes, you're welcome. You're welcome. Automation Addict. That's a good name. Recently, I had a recruiter ask me, I need to know your salary to find suitable roles for you. Yeah, BS. How would you approach such a question? It's like someone coming to you on the street and saying, I need to know your credit card number so I can help you, right? Recruiters often say, just tell me everything I need to know. Don't hold anything back. And that'll help me help you, all right? How would you approach such a question? Well, look, I'm trying to get away from job interview stuff, but I have videos on my channel. I think my number one most viewed video with 4.2 million views or something is how to answer the salary expectations question. Okay? In a job interview. It's different when you have to answer it in a questionnaire, on a form, or in a web form where you have to put a number and you can't bypass the question. There's a different video on that because it's two different answers, okay? So check those out. Many of your videos show that interviewers are typically trying to eliminate you so you don't know what you don't need. So you don't show what you don't need. Do you ever think there is a concern of being viewed as obscure? No. Look, how many applicants do they get for a job on average these days? 100? You've got to go from a recruiter's job is to go from 100 to 1. And that's who you hire. So yes, they are trying to eliminate people, right? I mean, they're trying to spot talent, but also they're trying to eliminate people. So if they're in their initial rounds, if you open your mouth and say something bad, that pretty much eliminates you a lot of the time. Okay? That's entry-level jobs. When you go a bit higher, it works a little bit differently, but basically, yes, it's an elimination game, right? It's not being eliminated. And I mean, like everything in this world, it's not what you do. It depends how you do it. It's not obscure. If somebody says, I need your credit card information so I can help you. You called customer service, or I'm from customer service, just give me your credit card information. I mean, does that make you feel obscure to them when you don't give them? Yes. But it's for your own good. The king of all those questions is, what is your weakness? Please tell me. What's the reason I wouldn't hire you? And you say, oh, well, what you don't know is that I'm a drug addict. I just thought that's probably the one thing you don't know that would be the worst, right? And they go, oh, thank you very much. Eliminated, right? Does that make you obscure? Yes. It's not a stupid question. That's a very good question. It depends how you do it. You've got to say something. Okay, you've got to give a professional, accommodating answer that doesn't feel like you're mad or you're blocking or anything like that, but you just don't disclose the thing that's honestly bad about you so they can use it as a reason to eliminate you. It's just that simple, right? You don't say something like, no, I refuse to answer that question because you're trying to trap me. I mean, yeah, you don't do it like that. If you did it like that, that would seem... That would be a problem. Okay, that would raise a lot of red flags. Just the fact that you answered that way. Even if you have nothing to hide, if you answered that way, that would be a problem, right? So this is where communication skills come in, right? You want to be diplomatic. You want to give a friendly, professional answer that the interviewer is satisfied with, but it doesn't raise any red flags, right? Oh, and by the way, and you're not lying through your teeth. Right? So if you can satisfy all those conditions, that's what you do. That's called diplomacy and communication skills. So it shouldn't strike anyone as being obscure if you do it right. I know it's sometimes easier said than done, but depending on how persistent they are. But you got to be prepared for that, and you learn that through practice, okay, and rehearsal, which is the same thing, really. I mean, experience. And having thought about your answers in advance, okay? So you plan it out, and then you get experience interviewing. Anyway, I want to get off that topic because this is a business, not employment. I talk about employment so much. It's like a little piece of what I know and I'd like to talk about. And I get it that it's helpful for a lot of people, but today I want to do other things. But thank you for the question. Okay, where are we here? Okay, Amanda, my colleague has a senior title but does junior level work. Yeah, I know what you mean. I've been mentoring him for 9 months and no change. I don't think it's fair, and my boss is aware of his underperformance. What should I do? If you want to keep in the good graces of your boss, you have to do what the boss says. Now, all you can do is you can bring this concern forward as clearly, yet politely and professionally as you can, okay? But if they just refuse to do anything about it, usually that means your hands are tied. The only other thing I suppose you could potentially do would be to go over your boss's head to some other authority. But that has a lot of issues. So depending on how serious and urgent this problem is, I don't know if that's really an option you want to consider, but it is there, okay? You could sort of take a more passive approach and say, look, you talk to your boss and you say, look, okay, as I have mentioned, I'm having this concern, this issue. I'm training this person. They're not responding. They don't seem to be improving. If you have an idea why, maybe they're just uninterested in the job or something, you could bring that forward. Don't say they are uninterested in the job. Say, I suspect they may be uninterested in the job. I don't know that for a fact, but that's the only explanation I can think of. I have brought this up before. It is starting to interfere with my work because it's requiring so much time from me to train them that it's impinging upon my ability to do my job. Unless I hear any different, I'm going to sort of allow this trainee more autonomy. I'm going to spend less time with them, and I feel maybe what's needed now is for them to just start doing the work themselves. Okay, rather than me training them constantly, they have to jump into the pool and start swimming. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do unless I hear any directives to the contrary. Something like that. I mean, depending on the culture, depending on where you work and who you're dealing with and the details, that would be something I would try. Oh, it's so bright in here. It just keeps, it's partly cloudy. That's the weather forecast, right? You pay the the weather forecasting people. They have their supercomputer, right? That tells them it's going to be like a 50% chance of being partly cloudy or something like that. That's what I got here. So I really need to put this brightness on auto. The problem is when I've done that in the past, all kinds of weird things have happened. Anyway, let's see here. It invokes the rarely used X-ray setting. My pay is way less than him, and I don't have a senior title. Yeah, that I can understand that being frustrating. Yeah, look, everything you do within an organization, you can't act unilaterally. You have to essentially get permission, okay? And if someone refuses to give you permission, you're basically stuck there. The only unilateral power you have is to be able to threaten to quit. But any threat like that, you have to be prepared for your bluff to be called, okay? So if this is like a major, major issue, I would start looking for other jobs. And if you get an offer, okay, then you have some bargaining power here and say look, I can't continue in this arrangement any longer. Okay. I'm being paid less than this person. I'm doing more than them and they don't even understand how to do their job. And I'm training them for a role that's above my pay grade. That's unacceptable. Either you fix this now or I'm giving you my 3 weeks notice or whatever, and then see what they do. Right. And then you proceed down that path. You actually give them your notice and you leave. I've seen a lot of people do this, and it's only when they leave, the day after they leave, their boss calls them at home and goes, wait, let's not be hasty. Come back, we'll fix the arrangement. I've seen that, okay? But maybe it's just not something they're willing to do. And so you have to do what's right for you. I'm not suggesting you leave. I'm just suggesting if it's really not working, look for other options. More options give you power. They give you bargaining power. You can choose what you do, and you don't need anyone's permission to do what's best for you. Okay? Because everything you do within the organization, it requires their permission, their approval. And if they're just unwilling to give it and you need it, you're at an impasse. So, you can be very eloquent and very diplomatic. You can go to multiple people. As I said, as a last resort, you could go above your boss's head. But, these are some of the issues. That can create issues also. So it's up to you, what feels most appropriate in your particular situation, knowing all the details. But hopefully that at least maybe puts the problem into perspective for you. But that's another great question. Not an easy situation to be in, and not an easy solution. Luke Rioch, is that how you say your name? Luke Rioch? You're welcome. Thank you for being here. Resume Master. Okay, that's a promising name. Do you have any tips to negotiate salary after a job offer when the job provides a limit of vacation days? Well, I've done videos on that. And this is not the stream today is not really about. I'm trying to get away from talking about job interviews and recruiters and that kind of stuff. Look, I have several videos on salary. I have literally 5 videos on salary, including one that's an hour long going through every aspect of salary negotiation. Maybe check that out. Okay, do a YouTube search, the company's expert salary, and that should hopefully bring those up. Hello, Leonardo. It's good to see you here. Bill, I got into the onboarding process. I had to sign some documents, but haven't gotten the job offer yet. What does that mean? That's usually a red flag. They're doing things ass backwards. Okay, if they're onboarding you and you don't have an offer, is it? That's a red flag. What does it mean? That means that something is up. I mean, I would ask them directly. I would say am I hired? What's going on? Because I don't have an offer. I mean, if you want me to invest time and, I need an offer. And if they give you a runaround, that's a really bad red flag. Okay? That's all I can say. It sucks because you want this to work out. You're hoping that it works out. You're trying to be accommodating. I get it. But what they're doing, if I understand you correctly, is not reasonable. And also, depending where you are in the world, a lot of times it's illegal, right? Getting someone to do work, making them have to show up at a certain time, and you're telling them what to do, that's work. And they can't have you work for free. That's usually against the law in most countries, right? So, right? So, confront them about it. Or you can proceed in the hopes that it might work out, but just remember, what they're doing is unreasonable, and it sounds like they're maybe trying to get something for nothing. It could be a simple oversight, but most companies won't slip up in this department because it's very important. They're literally breaking the law by doing things like this. Okay, so depending on what they've asked you to do so far. But if they ask you to show up and you must show up at this place and time to do this, I mean, that constitutes work. Okay, the legal definition of work. I'm not a lawyer, but where I am in Canada, that's certainly in the United States, it also is that's the legal definition of work. and a lot of other places too. So, I mean, just that's what's going on. So you need to do what is right to you. Sorry, Leonardo. Wish I had better news for you. King says, "Hello, Bill. I got the job. Thanks to you and all your advice. I start soon. Thank you so much. Congratulations, King. You've been on several of my live streams, so way to go. Awesome." And Amanda says, "Thank you. Thank you, Amanda." Look at that. We've got to the end of the questions. Yeah. No, I mean, I regard like having your own business as the end result, the destination of a career. Okay. I know that for everyone, that's not where they end up. People can be fabulously successful, working within organizations and things. But it is the end result for some people that really works out for them. Because what a lot of organizations do is they abstract the business away from you. You don't know about business, that's fine. You come work for us, you do what we say. We are the ones that are aware of what's going on. You just do what we tell us. That's your job. And, we make the money and we'll divvy some of it out to you as a reward. Right? So they're in charge. They control everything. They are aware of everything. Right? It's like you hiring somebody to, I don't know, like do some manual labor thing for you. Like say you need some boxes moved or, like, I don't know, you own a house, you get someone to plant your garden or cut your grass or something. It's kind of that type of situation, And the problem is that from the point of view of the worker, you're just not aware of what's going on. If you are aware of like, oh, this is how they make their money. This is what they do. This is what they say to this customer, and then they get paid. If you knew all of that, you could do it yourself. And instead of being given a pittance for your trouble, you could keep it all, Now there is risk. You do take some risk, right? But you manage the risk by knowing your stuff. So if through your career, through your life, you're improving yourself, you're learning about business, learning about the industry you're in, learning how it works. You go like when you get a job in an organization, okay, you have a very privileged thing, which is like you are on the inside of something that is presumably very profitable. Okay, there are some businesses that are in business that are losing money. They're not profitable and their days are numbered, right? But most of them are profitable. They're making money. They're making a profit. The people that own it are making money off it. People that own it don't really do anything. They just own it and they're just getting paid. Just every month or whatever, money gets transferred to them, right? Because of the work you're doing. You're a part of the operational part of that business, right? So the reason this exists, this situation exists, is because you feel that you need them to make money. You just need money, but you don't know anything about business. Okay, and you don't have the capability. In some cases, you might not have the capabilities to do it yourself. Like if you're working in a steelworks, okay, or an oil refinery or a mine. I mean, you don't have a mine on, your own property or the steelworks or a multi-billion-dollar facility, to do it yourself, right? I mean, your competitive position is inferior, right? Okay. That's some industries, but a hell of a lot of industries, you have the capability of doing what they do. It's amazing how many businesses you can do with simply a computer and a desk and a phone. Right? Think of for a start, think of every HR company on the planet. What do those people do? They have a desk and a computer and a phone. That's all you need to start your own HR company or marketing company. You might need access to a conference room, but in whatever city or hometown you're in, pretty much in the world, you can rent that for tiny amount of money, tiny, like, $50, $100, most max, sometimes you can get it for free if you join a certain program or a place, whatever. There's ways around it. You have the tools. It's just that you don't have the knowledge. You haven't yet made the connections. You don't know what to say. You don't know what to do, right? Spend the next few years learning that. And then you won't be a slave having to depend on a job, having to go through the whole hiring process, having to deal with recruiters that judge you on totally ridiculous, principles, right? And you take your future in your hands and you don't depend on anyone to give you your money. You're getting it directly from the work you do. And the harder you work and the better you work, the smarter you work, you get more and more money. So I regard startup and small business to me as the eventuality, as the end point for a lot of this how to get a job in careers business. I really do. I've been sort of on my now I'm talking all about myself, but I've been sort of on my own for nearly 10 years, like not working for anybody. I've done work for schools and I do consulting and I've done teaching and I do this YouTube thing and I've done mentoring of startup founders and stuff like this. And I've gotten paid, here and there for that stuff, but but I've been on my own. I don't depend on, I don't have a boss. And I do precisely what I want. And ever since I've done that, I kind of think, why would anyone go back? But I'm aware that not everybody is in that position. Like if you're a lawyer or an engineer, you do engineering. Engineering you could take up on your own. If you're a lawyer, you can have your own practice. If you're any kind of professional, you're an accountant, you're an architect, you're, whatever, you're like in a technical area, you're a mining engineer, you can set up on your own. I've met a lot of people that set up on their own, and I've had a lot of conversations with them. But it requires you to round out your skills. It requires you to have technical skills, communication skills, and you've got to learn the areas of business. You got to learn, a little bit of accounting. Not that you do your own accounting, like you hire an accountant to do it properly, but you need to understand the concept, right? Marketing, you need to be able to talk to, understand the marketing side, the sales side, operations side, all of that stuff. It's really not that hard, So food for thought, okay? Like I've mentioned, like you guys are probably sick and tired of hearing, I have a course that teaches you some of that stuff, but or all of that stuff really, but it's not about my course. It's like, it's just food for thought. If you're starting out in your career, just keep this in the back of your mind. I'm not expecting you to act on it, but that's the reality, If you don't learn this stuff, if you don't learn about business, you're going to be dependent on someone who does know it, okay? A lot of these organizations, you have to rely on them to give you a job. And they give you usually far less than 50% of the money that you generate, right? They keep the rest. They'll give you maybe 20 to 30% of it, right? That's your pay. The rest they keep. So that's what's actually going on. So if you get a job, you could, if you wish, almost go into the company as a germ, and just see what they do. Learn as much as you possibly can. When we're young, we have this attitude of like, I know better than anyone and I don't ever want to be like my boss or them, okay. But you also see a lot of things that you can't explain. And some people had some great questions today where they were talking about, like, why do people in this department not want to work with people in that department? Things like this. That's the beginning of some knowledge. When you learn the answers to stuff like that, you learn what's actually going on. It's very revealing. So learn as much as you can about your industry, about business in general, about having personal skills, communication skills, okay? And you will go far. It may take you 10 years of learning. It may take you 1, but it may take you 10. It may take you even more, depending on who you are. But if you keep learning that stuff, eventually, when an opportunity presents itself, you'll go far. Okay, the documents were like my ID, application forms and employee agreement. Was this a continuation of something? I got to sign the onboarding process. I had to sign some documents, but haven't gotten the job offer yet. What does this mean? The documents were your ID, your application forms, and employee agreement. Well, by employee agreement, do you mean job offer? Like a job offer, it's going to say, here, we're going to pay you this money in exchange for you to do this, right? That's what the job offer is. So by employee agreement, is that kind of what was on it? Because that will be your job offer. Christopher, if I'm saying that right, Christopher says, how do I motivate employees that are just in it for the cash and care for the company and what they are doing? Well, there are many incentives. There are many types of incentives. Okay. First and foremost, there's financial incentives. I don't know if you have the authority to grant financial incentives. I have found that small financial incentives have a huge impact. Huge. Out of all proportion. Okay? Like I said at the beginning of the stream, I've seen workers that are paid a lot of money, $100,000 equivalent, and they're just lazy, bad, unmotivated employees because they just don't care. And they get paid their salary. It's fixed. They get paid it no matter what. So why lift a finger to do any more than you have to when you're at work? And then you motivate them by saying, okay, I'm going to give you a 2-week project. And if you accomplish this goal, I'll give you a bonus of $100. I was in a position where I had the authority to do that. And all of a sudden, these people transformed from like being totally lazy and unmotivated to like being super productive. Just because they could get that extra little $100. It's ridiculous, but it's a psychological thing. So, I mean, there's a financial incentive. Also, most people are not in the position to be able to do that. So you have to rely on other incentives, not financial incentives. Okay. You can commend somebody. You can publicly commend them. Okay. Someone did a great job. You have you talk in front of the group, say, hey, I just want to congratulate this person. They did a fantastic job. This is what they did. This is what they accomplished. I've never seen anyone do that here. Congratulations. Well done. Kind of thing. Give them a pat on the back. And a lot of people, depending on the situation, you might, tailor the form of that. But a lot of people as human beings, we respond to that. We go, oh, well, thank you very much. It's nice to feel appreciated. A lot of times people don't get that. People in their daily lives just don't get that. A lot of us don't get that. It's very rare someone comes up to you and says, you know what, I think you're great. I mean, you just did this. I can't do that. A lot of people can't do that. How do you do that? That's incredible. Way to go. Most people don't get that. Now, what does that cost? That costs very little. It costs your time and your effort. Okay? So you could try that. Like if in the absence of not knowing what to do, you can try that. Okay? Or some form of it. Okay? There's a lot of people that have a lot of sort of weird corporate theories on how to motivate people. And, I don't agree with most of them. But I think that rewarding people by being nice to them, recognizing them, publicly commending them in some way. And I don't mean like putting up employee of the month crap on the wall. I mean like demonstrating it on a personal level. Now if that doesn't get through to them and you can't do the money thing, then you might have to resort to more corporate baloney, for want of a better word. Like these team building exercises and crap like that. I really don't like that stuff. I don't think they're very effective. But there's all kinds of supposed experts that claim to be experts on that stuff. And That's the kind of thing they say. So you could try that, but I would just do, on a personal level. So that would be my answer to that. Haven't done any job yet, but am I hired? I don't know. Yeah. Sorry, Leonardo, it's just a very confusing situation with what they're trying to do to you. I would ask them directly. I would just say, like, look, what's going on here? Because you're asking me to show up and do this. I mean, that constitutes work. Am I hired? If you send me my offer letter, I'll be happy to show up and do the onboarding, something like that, In the meantime, keep looking, okay? Because the more you put your job search on hold to entertain these people in this kind of thing that this runaround they're doing, the more like risk, the more impact it's having on you. So keep looking. And look, if they send in a job offer and all works out, great. You have nothing to lose, by just keep looking, right? Until that happens. But it's a way for you to look out for you. Okay? And manage your risk. Do you have any advice to adapt to project-oriented performance review from a checklist? Do you have any advice to adapting to project-oriented performance review from a checklist? I don't quite know what you mean. Do you have any advice on networking for public sector workers? I don't understand what you mean on the first question. If you could rephrase that would be helpful. Do you have any advice on networking for public sector? What do you mean by public sector workers? Like, are you talking about like public works, like that industry, like wastewater and roads and things like that? Is that what you're talking about? I mean, my networking, like any networking advice I would give you is not industry specific. It's principles that apply to, as far as I can tell, all industries. That kind of thing. And I don't advocate like just going to events, live events. I mean, that can help. That can be a part of it. But, I talk about much more direct kind of things. That's all in my Get Hired course, by the way. Yeah, like LinkedIn is an incredible resource. Okay, with LinkedIn, it's like being able to see everybody's resume. It's being able to see inside of organizations, look at all the individuals, and see their resume. It's an incredible tool. And then on top of that, you can contact them. So if you want to get hired at a certain company, here's a company, it's in your industry. I've done a lot of videos on this on my channel. Here's a company, it's in my industry. I did a search for, in my hometown, this industry. Public works, okay? Wastewater management. Okay, so I found all the facilities, locations, organizations that are connected with the wastewater industry in my hometown. They're all on a map. Bam, 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 bam. You can see their names, you can see their websites, you can see their contact information. There you go. I know their names. And I've determined that, okay, these are the ones within, say, 10 kilometers of where I live. Okay, it'll be a reasonable commute, right, if you got a job there. Then, of those places, you can then go on LinkedIn. You can enter in those organizations, okay, in your hometown, and then you can see the people within them. Oh, look, here's the CEO, here's the president, here's the director of operations, or let's say you've got a marketing qualification. Here's the director of marketing right there, right? So there's the person. You can see what they have, what their qualifications are, how long they've been there, what they look like, what their name is, and then you can send them a message. The first thing you could do is ask them to connect with you. If they don't respond, that tells you something. And that's fine. A lot of people won't. But some people will. They'll connect with you. And then once they connect with you, you send them a message for free. And it says like, hello, can I get some minutes of your time? Could you spare half an hour? I'm, excuse me. Bah. My body holds me back. You guys like my hair today? I did it specially for you, so I hope you appreciate it. It's not easy to roll out of bed and get your hair looking this perfect. No, so you can contact these people, and you could say a variety of different things, okay? The most obvious thing is to say, hello, I have this qualification, I have these skills in marketing. If ever you're looking for someone to add to your team, I would jump at working with you guys in your organization because I know you do this great work. That's all. If ever you're looking, please let me know. Thanks very much. Have a great day. That's the most obvious basic thing you can do. You can do other things. You could ask for informational interviews. You could say, hey, could you spare me perhaps half an hour of your time? I'd love to get your expert opinion on the wastewater industry in this region. What does the future hold? Where's this industry going? If you could spare me, half an hour, could we go grab a coffee sometime? I'd love to hear your opinion on this stuff. Right? Now, a lot of people won't respond, but some people will. And then you've got all these like informational interviews lined up with people in, the decision makers at places you'd love to work in your region, right? You meet, you're not looking for a job. You're just like, hey, I'd just like to pick your brain about this. And then they tell you stuff and you're like, wow, that's awesome. And then you ask follow-up questions. You don't do a lot of talking. You just ask them a couple of questions and they do the talking. Right? And that entire thing that I just described, that's very flattering for people. When was the last time somebody contacted you and said, you know what? You're an expert on this. I would love to get your opinion. I know you guys do great work, or, you've done great work in the past. One day I might want to get into that. And I think it's fascinating what you do. I'm trying to learn everything I can about it. Would you be able to spare me half an hour to just, chat? And you could give me your expert opinion on this. That's very flattering. People will accept it because it's flattering, right? The other thing is that if you talk to the right people, the people higher up, not the people in the middle, not the people at the bottom, but the people higher up, part of their job is to respond to public queries, okay? If you are an executive, that is part of your job. You're going to be contacted by the press, by the government, by potential customers, potential suppliers, potential partners, vendors, and it's your job to initiate these communications. Like, how good of a company would be if a large partner, like a big giant company, want to partner with you and they don't know who to talk to. They don't want to talk to the switchboard and some receptionist. They want to talk to you. They want to talk to the CEO or the director of marketing, director of strategic partnerships, whatever. So they contact that person and they say, hey, do you want to get together? I'd like to ask you a few things, right? Now, how bad would it be if the executive said, what? Who are you? How'd you get this number? Why are you contacting me? No, I don't want to talk to you. I don't know you. Goodbye. Like, obviously that's bad for business, right? A part of your role is to take these public queries. You don't know quite who's on the other end, but it could be, something great for the business. You don't know. So you need to be at least receptive to them, right? So that's what you're taking advantage of, okay? Now, you're not lying to anybody. You're being totally upfront. You're saying, look, I'd love to ask you a few questions. That's all. I'm trying to learn about this industry, and I'd love to be able to ask you as an expert and get your expert opinion, Now, some people are too busy or some people don't take it, but some people do, right? And that's how you can make contact with these people. And imagine if the person who shows up to talk to the executive is polite, is professional, and it's enjoyable talking to this person, and it strokes the executive's ego a little. Like, yes, I have spent 30 years in this industry, and I do kind of know what I'm talking about. It's nice to have somebody tell me that, The same way we were talking about what can you do to motivate that employee, right? You stroke people's egos. It's not, you don't do it in a slimy way. You just get them to do something good, and then you tell them that it's good, right? So this is like the back door to get a lot of jobs. This is where you find a lot of jobs, because if they're looking to hire for a position, right? for multiple reasons, they'll say, you told me you had a marketing degree. I believe they are looking for somebody in marketing. Like that. I mean, it's a bit more complex, like how you bring that up later. But the point is, if they like you, you're talented, they're looking for somebody, you've got a back door into that company, right? And like I said on a previous live stream, one of the most powerful things is the CEO handing the director of HR your resume and saying, look into this person, right? They're not going to ghost you, and they're going to look at you pretty damn seriously too. You're going to get an entirely different experience with hiring when that happens. And it came out of just a routine meeting with an executive, the way that businesses contact each other all the time. That's how you set up different relationships and partnerships and, business deals. That's all going on constantly. And these people, they handle that as part of their job. If the government has a question about the business, we just got a question about this, how do you think they approach the company? They'll contact the CEO and say, hey, we just need to talk. Would you be able to spare, some time, at your convenience? You name date, time, place, and I'll show up. And the CEO doesn't really know what this is about, but they say, sure, yeah, no problem. I'll meet you once. Right? It goes even better if they really enjoy the meeting with you. And if you say half an hour, you stick to half an hour. Why are cover letters still relevant? I think they're a little humiliating for their authors. Yeah, they're stupid. I've never really looked at cover letters. And I know a lot of people don't look at them either. It's close to begging for a job with uncertainties, in my opinion. Look, here's the deal. One thing you should do, if we're talking, here we go again. We're talking about getting jobs. One thing you should have worked out is your pitch, right? Like, essentially, when you're looking for jobs, you're trying to sell yourself. You're the product. You're trying to sell it, right? How do you sell anything? You talk about all the good points about it. You talk about what you know, what you have, what you've done, what you can do, right? So once you've figured this out in order of importance, and you've streamlined it, condensed it, right? That's going to be the stuff you're going to say in a job interview, basically. It's also going to be the stuff you're going to put on things like a cover letter. It's going to be the thing that you put on a LinkedIn profile. It's going to be the thing you put kind of on your resume. It all relates to the same thing. But once you've worked it out, you can just keep reusing it, right? If it represents you and it's your selling points. So a cover letter, in my opinion, is going to be just a reflection of that. And I'm a fan of very short cover letters. In my experience, a cover letter a lot of times is basically the email that you attach your resume to, right? Hello, whoever, this is who's emailing you. This is why I'm emailing you to apply for this job as posted there. Please find my resume enclosed. If you need anything else, please let me know. Thank you. Best regards. That's like the cover letter, right? When you write like a 3-page kind of essay, especially for entry-level jobs, I really don't think people look at that. But I'm sure there are people that are, but I think most people don't. And I know a lot of places demand that you submit a cover letter. It's like, I don't understand why. It might say something else like, I'm applying for this role because I just want to get some hard industry experience in this industry. Something like that. Maybe the purpose. And that's it. There's not really too much else to say, I think. But that's just my opinion. I'm not an expert on cover letters. And it's also indirectly, it's a demonstration of your communication skills. If they get your cover letter, it's riddled with spelling and grammatical errors, or there aren't any sort of social graces like, read my resume, get back to me, like, that's kind of an indicator of your abilities, right? So it's significant perhaps in that sense. Same with your resume. I'm not really going to take any more questions about interviewing. That's what I normally talk about. This is kind of a business thing. Folks say one shouldn't concentrate on money during early stages of one's career. They claim that money will come on its own as you develop a stronger foothold in your industry. Thoughts? Well, sometimes, yes. Not all the time. There are a lot of people that end up working for nothing that get exploited. So it's a balance, isn't it? It's a fine line between what form of compensation. On one extreme, there's jobs that they pay you a lot of money, but they're crap, right? They're tough. They're hard. Yeah, you end up being miserable. When you're very young, maybe you could take those jobs. That's usually how it goes. On the other extreme, you can have jobs where you learn a lot and you accomplish some personal goals, but they don't pay very much. The extreme form of that would be like working in a charity, where it's almost like a volunteer position. Right? Now, you want to talk about reward. Maybe you're helping people. Maybe you get to see the grateful faces of people that you're helping. And that, for some people, is more compensation than you could ever have in the corporate world. And you want to just do that your entire life, and that's great. But at the same time, you need to live, you need to eat, and so you've also got to, a job is a job. Like, a job is something you do in exchange for money, right? So, everybody's going to sort of draw the line where they want, right? Far be it from me to say where it should be drawn. But it's sort of a continuum, and, you kind of find your place on it. Some people will do things that, they sort of lose their soul doing. They do borderline unethical things, and they get paid a lot, but it just gnaws away at their soul or something. You've got to strike a balance, right? When I was a CEO, there's definitely some stuff I had to do as part of the CEO role that was hard to come to terms with. You have to have a game face, and you have to always communicate positive things regardless of reality, things like this. And that's very tough. I'm never going back to that. That's why I'm a former CEO. I'm glad I had the experience, and I proved that I can do it, but I don't enjoy it. Like, I'm just not cut out to be a lawyer. If you're a lawyer, you have to argue whichever way your client wants. It could be completely at odds with your personal feelings, but you're paid to argue and to fight as hard as you can for a cause that you may not agree with. And some people are okay with that. Some people aren't. And some people are kind of in between. I'm kind of in between, depending what it is. But I have a line that I don't cross, and I'm sure everyone else does. So it's up to you. Okay? Wouldn't it be great if you could learn a lot and make a good living? Wouldn't that be great? What to choose, money or learning after 7+ years or experience? I can't answer that for you. That's you have to decide what you want to do. It depends what you're doing. It depends what you're getting out of it, what your goals are, what your ambitions are, and what the opportunity is in front of you. But yes, it is a balance. If someone asked me for my advice, I would just say, perhaps don't pick either extreme. Pick something in the middle. Like, wouldn't it be great if you could make a living wage, or you could make something above a living wage? Money isn't a huge source of stress for you, but at the same time, you're doing something relevant to your career. You're learning skills. You're getting a glimpse inside an industry that you might want to stay in, or at least you're learning transportable skills. So even if you get out of that industry, you can still bring some of that learning with you. things like learning to deal with people, learning how to do projects, learning how to run operations, things like this, they can be very transportable. So maybe somewhere in the middle if I had to give advice, but I think everyone's going to decide for themselves like where they fall. Another sort of 5 or so questions, and then I have to wrap this up. Hopefully it isn't too bright for you guys. I'm just going to turn this down yet again. Here we go. Do you believe there is all that much value to obtaining a master's degree after 10 years or so of experience in your field? Well, obviously it depends on the degree you get and the field you're in, but yes, I do. In fact, the stuff that I did, like business management, like getting an MBA, usually that's how people do it. They go out into the world, get jobs for about 10 years, then come back, get a master's degree in business. And that's actually preferable to getting your master's degree at the very beginning, like staying in school to do a bachelor degree and then a master's degree and then getting out in the real world. Because to master business, I mean, you have to have, in my opinion, you have to have real world experience. You can't just spend your entire life in school and then think you know everything. It just doesn't work like that. I mean, yes, you might know a lot of the theory. Yes, but just the theory is not everything, certainly in the world of business. So yes, do you think it is necessary to get an MBA degree after working for 3 to 5 years in the Big Four? Well, if anyone's going to value an MBA, I assume it would be the Big Four. Okay. Generally, MBAs are valued by financial institutions and large organizations, and the Big Four are both of those. So I haven't worked in the Big Four myself. Like I've hired people from to do accounting and stuff and auditors and things from the Big Four, but I haven't worked in it myself. So yeah, I would think that it would be internally, it would have value. It would be like a feather in your cap, something to put on your resume that would be considered favorably, if they were considering promoting you or something like that. It's ironic. I think the people that put the most value on MBAs are the people that use them the least, like large organizations. When you work in a large organization, unless you're at the very top or something, you're working as a tiny cog in a big machine. So you don't really need most of your MBA. Like if you work in operations, I mean, what advantage does it really give you knowing all the marketing stuff? Because you never use it. I mean, you might be able to appreciate your role within the organization and see how it fits in. But does it actually help you do your job differently? You could argue not, right? Whereas smaller organizations where you're more of a generalist, you're doing more of the business function. You're doing maybe marketing, a little bit of operations, a little bit of sales, a little bit of customer service, a little bit of supply chain, a little bit of sort of writing procedures and doing people management, a little bit of HR. That's where you're using a lot of those different skills. That's who should care about if people have MBAs, I think. That's just my opinion. But generally, smaller organizations place less value on having an MBA. That's one of the reasons I created my course, so you can get the learning, but not have to spend 2 years of your life in school paying $10,000 to do it. It just, bam, there's the learning right there. And you do it on your own terms, right? Oh, I get to show my thing again. Here you go, right? Check out, link in description if you're interested. That's my course. Okay. But hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so if anyone's going to value an MBA, it would be things like banks. So the Big Four is kind of close to that, having consulting services and accounting services, auditing services. Like they have business valuators and things like that within those firms, right? So you could have is it chartered business valuator? You could have that credential. I know that's well regarded. And I think that's more, I don't know if that's more on their consulting side or their auditing side, but you would think it would apply to both, right? And part of, incidentally, maybe everyone doesn't know this, but part of learning business is you do take an accounting course. So you don't come out as a certified accountant, but you understand knowing the basics of accounting. Like you know all what they do, right? That alone is useful for if you want to be in business, just knowing the basics of accounting, right? It's usually the toughest course in a business program is the accounting course. I'm a content writer. I make use of paraphrasing tools, and they help. I do believe that AI makes things easier for people in the future, but doesn't that encourage multitasking and indirectly risk jobs? Yeah, of course it does. Any new technology is going to risk jobs. It'll do more than risk jobs. It'll eliminate jobs. But it creates other job opportunities in different areas. That's generally how it goes. I'm not an expert on, the sort of like history of macroeconomics and stuff, but and the effects of innovation on economies, but generally I believe that's how things go. When a new technology comes in, I hate using this term because it's a buzzword, but it's disruptive. If it's disruptive, that means it changes things, right? So one of the changes is going to be in terms of the job market. There's no longer going to be as much demand for this thing, but it does create demand for this other thing, right? Now, usually the net gain is positive. So you're going to gain more than you're going to lose. It's going to benefit more than it's going to harm, but the benefits and the detriments are going to be in different areas, right? So one skill for young people that are looking, they ask you that question, what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to get a job in? The number one factor for success is go into an area that's going to be in demand. Because if you're going into an area that's in decline, you could be the most brilliant person ever in your field, but there's no opportunities. They're actually laying people off in that vocation, and it doesn't really help you being that brilliant. There just aren't any opportunities. Whereas if they're hiring in this area because there's a big demand for these people, and not only do you do that, but you're brilliant, of course you're going to succeed. If you're mediocre, but you go into that area where they're hiring and they can't get enough people, you're still going to succeed, right? So you have to be aware as much as possible of the market and trends and things like this. Put it this way, it will help you, okay? The more aware of that stuff you are, the more it will help you, okay? Being purposefully ignorant, like, I don't care, I want to do this. Like, okay, but there's a risk that you could have a blind spot for something important that's going to end up being a problem later. Like, look at how the internet has affected journalism. How does a negative experience of a part-time second job, such as being fired, affect one's full-time professional career? Well, I don't think it does necessarily. It can, but it certainly doesn't have to. If you are working two jobs and you get fired from one, I think that one offshoot is that now you can focus more on your one job that you have. You're rested, you're focused, you have more energy. I don't think it really affects you in any other way. And I'm not talking about psychological effects, I'm just talking about the direct effect on your career. Look, depending on where you are in your career, like if you're in your 20s You know, we learn in our 20s. We try things, and some of them work and some of them don't. You know, don't be like this is going to sound so bad, but don't be afraid of failure. Like if you try things and you fail, that's better than not trying at all. And I mean that. I mean that. I have failed at many different things, and I'm happy because those lessons learned have come back to serve me in my later career. I'm glad I tried. The problem is that I don't know about you guys, but my experience is that like you go through the school system, right? You know, when you're young, you go, and they have this, and I know this because I've recently, like in the last 5 years or whatever, I've gone back to teaching and stuff, and I've gone back into that world, and it's like, it's this atmosphere of conformity. We don't want you to think for yourself. We don't want you to stand out. We don't want you to try things. You do as we say. We need everyone to do this together. No exceptions. You all take the test. You all learn the material. You all do the assignment. You all listen to my answer, right? So, like, think of it. Like, going through, how many years of that did we go through? Like, 15 years of that? Full time? What type of attitude does this cultivate in people? It's an attitude where I can't do anything. I need to ask for permission first. That's kind of the attitude. You become very conservative in that sense. Like, oh, I don't see anyone else doing this, so maybe I shouldn't do it, right? The default thing is to do what everybody else does. Now, there are some times when that's probably the thing to do, right? That works out best for you. But there are other times in life where that attitude works against you, right? As I say, you can't come out on top if you can't stand out in a crowd if you're doing the same thing that everyone else is doing. Right? And I found that when I went back to teaching, like I'm not teaching anymore. I taught for like 3 or 4 years. Like I stopped like 2 years ago, I think, something like that. Anyway, but when I went back into it, and I was teaching 20-year-olds, 25-year-olds, and 30-year-olds, it's like, I was just blown away by like, these people just have no initiative. They're so scared of doing anything that they would consider different or unusual. And that really works against them. You know? So try stuff in your 20s. I mean, manage the risk. Do it in an intelligent way. Don't bet your entire financial future on something that's very risky. Manage the risk, but try things. You want to start a company? Try it. You want to, go and change industries? Try it. Like, do it in an intelligent way. Plan out the financial stuff. Don't take major financial risks. Okay? Have something to fall back on, all that kind of stuff. But this is the time in your life to do things. You usually don't have a family, you don't have children, you don't, things like this, right? Like, this is the time. Don't just spend your 20s being too scared to try anything. Okay? You want to have your own company someday? Try it. Okay? Don't spend $250,000 doing it, but try it. If you can find a way to have a day job and then start a company in the evenings and like just till you get it paying for itself, till some money starts rolling in, you don't quit your day job. If like that's the best way to do things. You're smart about it, but you try things. If it pays off, great. If it doesn't, that's fine. You learn from it. I know that's such a cliche. There's all these people giving these like supposed wise words of wisdom, and they say this. And it's like, yeah, it's almost self-evident. It's not radically original, but it's true. It's true. How important are certifications to one's technical career? Well, it depends what your technical career is, but usually they're pretty important. If you want to get a job, usually they require certification. Usually, if you want to be qualified to do certain types of work, You need a certification? Yeah, I mean, if your ambition is to do technical things, you want to be a machinist, a mechanic, an electrician, a pipe fitter, a boiler maker, like those kind of skill trades. Yeah, you get your certification. In North America, it's like a Red Seal. You get your Red Seal certification. And then you can get a job in those areas and you can make a lot of money. But beware, because not all certifications and certificates and things are valuable. So do your research. Remember, I was saying LinkedIn is a very useful tool. Go on LinkedIn, find the people in the jobs that you want. It's like type in a job title and do a people search, see all the people that come up. Look at what they have. If they all have the same certification, chances are that's the one to get. If you're considering whether a certain certification is useful, look at the people in the jobs you want to get, see if any of them have it. If none of them have it, probably isn't that important, right? So don't take my word or anyone's word for this is valuable, this isn't. Go and do your own research. Go and check that out. Okay, just a couple more and then I got to wrap this up. Okay, Andrew Lee. Hello. Something I haven't seen talked about is if a company you worked for is undergoing a reorg process, is it better to stay with the company or leave and look elsewhere? That could go both ways. I left a company that I worked for because they were acquired, and I had spent 5 years helping to build up that company. I put them in a position where they could do work for not just small customers, but big customers. And we were starting to get that kind of work. And you have to put certain things in place to qualify to do work for corporate customers. You have to have safety programs, quality programs, biohazard programs, all kinds of things. I put all that stuff in place. And then they were bought by a foreign entity that was acquiring all these companies. And they came and visited, and based on that, I gave my notice. I said, look, I'll give you 9 months notice. Because what my job then would have been would be undoing all the work that I had done for the last 5 years and converting it over to their sort of version of it, their corporate version that they'd already put in place. And I was like, no, I have no interest in doing that. So I mean, it can be, but just because your thing changes ownership doesn't necessarily mean that you should leave. Sometimes, they're doing a reorg and they actually know what they're doing. A lot of times they don't, but sometimes they do. And the changes they make either don't affect you or they affect you in a positive way. And they turn the place around. It's starting to work really well. That's possible. That does happen sometimes, but so you've got to really look at the specific situation. There isn't a sort of blanket answer. How can I prepare for my first management position in an engineering field? Similar to a question I received early on in this stream, focus on people skills, okay? You probably have your technical chops down. That will not be the concern. To be a successful manager, you need a variety of skills. Number one skill is people skills. Okay? Be nice, be pleasant, be a good communicator. Be able to give good news and bad news in a way that doesn't piss everybody off and makes people still want to deal with you. Okay? That takes extra time, extra effort, but it pays off long term. Okay? You will be loved and you will be regarded as a great manager, great engineering manager. Okay? People will want to work for you. People will want to work with you. That's success. That leads to promotion. That leads to great things in your career. It also allows you to get the best out of your employees. So they do the work. Okay? You don't try and hoard all the work because you don't trust anyone. Delegate it. Let them do it. But help them. Bring out the best in them. Okay? When they need something, you're there to help. You try and get them what they need as much as possible. You encourage them, and you get everyone working together well. Early on in my career, I had a manager, I had a boss. I was not getting along with another coworker. And I had a great boss who was the boss of the two of us and said, like, look, Bill, you're awesome at this. You're awesome at that. You have some great qualities. You, person number 2, you're awesome at this. You're awesome at that. It's funny to me because you guys are kind of like opposites, If I could get you two working together, you guys would do great things, And like sort of like publicly commended both of us, to do that thing, stroked everyone's egos, and said, like, you guys need to go have lunch together. Go out. The company will pay for it. Just go out and get like a burger or something. Go out and have lunch together and talk about stuff. It worked. It worked like a charm. We respected each other. We were still polar opposites, but we still managed to work together in a productive way. So, that's people management, right? Okay, I have to wrap this up in a couple of minutes. So just the last couple of questions here. When to change jobs, how much time? That's up to you. That's up to you. That's going to vary. There is no right answer. It depends on how much you're learning and what the experience is. What can I do to become better at presenting and public speaking? The most important thing is practice. Practice. Okay? There is an organization called Toastmasters International. Check them out. For some people, that's the solution. For others, it's not really their cup of tea, but it can be a great start. Okay? And then beyond that, just practice. And remember, public speaking is getting up and talking to 2 people or more, okay? As if you feel nervous doing it, it's public speaking. So practice. I think about changing careers. I'm in my 40s. What do I need to take into account to be successful? Oh, that's a huge question. I don't know if I can answer that in like a minute. I've done a lot of videos on that kind of stuff. I believe I have a video called Changing Careers. So check that out. Do a YouTube search that says The Company's Expert, which is me, and then Changing Careers. And at least one video will come up on that topic, and just check that out. And last question for the stream. Andrew Leo, if that's saying your name properly, congratulations. You are the last person. In a good way. For context, the reorg is to change from an office-dependent company, multiple offices across the country, to a department-dependent company. Like sort of like virtual teams. Everybody's working remotely, but they're part of a virtual team. Is that what you're talking about? Okay. That sounds very nice. Does that mean they're going to be laying off a ton of people? Is it that type of situation where, you see, the word reorganization is a lot of times a euphemism for downsizing or streamlining. Companies don't like to say streamlining, downsizing, that kind of stuff. So they euphemistically call it a reorg. Now, if you use the word reorg to me, I assume that's what's going on. But if it's an actual reorg, that doesn't seem like too ambitious a thing. It doesn't seem like a huge change. You say yes, it's they're laying people off. Yeah, then it's a bit different. Because once you start laying people off, then everybody's looking out for number one. Everybody's doing things that are purely in their own interest to try and keep their job. And they're not going to deliver accurate information. They're not going to give accurate reports. They're going to slant everything. They're going to do what they can to keep their job. So it's very tough to say. Now, you were asking originally, what was your original question, Andrew? You were asking about the reorg. I'm trying to scan for your last thing. I can't see it. Anyway. Oh, yes to being virtual. Okay. Well, look, that just, if nobody's being laid off and it's just a process change. It really doesn't affect too much. Okay. Something I haven't seen the company you work for is undergoing a Is it better to stay with the company or leave and look elsewhere? Like, they're making a process change. Based on what you've told me, it sounds pretty benign. I wouldn't necessarily leave over them doing this. They're going to be changing as they go. All companies do, some more than others, but change is the constant. They're going to be rewriting procedures. They're going to be changing work arrangements. That's just how it goes. Now, I would at least wait to see where you end up. If your job morphs into something a little bit different, I would at least perhaps wait to see what that is. And then you can make an informed decision as to whether to stay or to leave. Okay. If you're feeling stressed about it, you don't know what to do, there's a lot of uncertainty, I would start casually looking for jobs. If for nothing else, that it makes you feel a bit more confident that no matter what happens, you'll be okay. So that's what I would do. I would check out stuff on the hidden job market, okay, like some of the techniques I've sort of loosely talked about to explore that. And just put some feelers out and see what else is going on. And that way, you have choices. So even if this doesn't work in a desirable way for you, you will have other options and you won't be stressed. You won't be worried. You won't have sleepless nights because of the uncertainty of like, oh no, are they going to change my job? They're going to downgrade me or let me go. Okay. So if it's something like that, I would do that if that's a concern. If none of that's a concern, you feel perfectly comfortable, just a minor change. I'd maybe just see how it plays out. But if there's any uncertainty, I would start looking just so you have a backup option. Nothing you want to really pursue seriously, but just to have something in your back pocket, just in case the worst case scenario happens. Then you're going to be okay. There's no question. So if that were me, I'd probably do something like that. Okay. So that's where I have to leave it, guys. Thanks so much for being here. It's so nice to see so many people turn out for this. This is the very first thing I've done like this. I'm always talking about jobs and nothing else. And this has been a great opportunity to talk about other things. And I'd like to do this again. So maybe next week I will do another one of these. It's going to be called Let's Talk Business. So if you have any more questions, show up for that and we'll do it again. So thank you so much. And just as a reminder, you can join my channel as a member and you get free videos from me every week, or you could sign up for this, right? If you have any interest in learning business, here's a way to do it, just to put your toe in the water, see what it's all about. Or if you want to go deeper and you want to really learn it, you can with this, okay? So link in the description if you want to investigate that further. Thank you so much for being here. You guys are awesome. Take care. I wish you nothing but the best, and I will see you next week. Thanks.